Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Today I wanted to talk about some cool stuff that's going on. Well, some cool, some not so cool. Let's talk about the cool first. So the IRS has just come out and publicly stated that they will not be conducting no-knock warrants and no-knock entries into homes anymore. I'm going to attribute that to the backlash from everybody knowing that they were supposed to hire 87,000 more agents, and that we know that there are people with guns in the world, and that this is a bad plan to go no-knocking on somebody's home, because what would end up happening is that would be putting guys with guns in very bad positions with people that may or may not have guns. And that's a bad plan all the way around. And the IRS finally came to its senses, what little bit of senses they have, because taxation is always theft. But they have finally come clean and said this is a bad plan. Let's talk about House Bill from Massachusetts, House Bill 4420. So it looks like the pushback from the community and from our community, calling the representatives in Massachusetts, and has started to have some effect. It looks like the bill is not going to go forward. These are preliminary, early findings that I'm hearing from, I'm going to cite the source, Guns and Gadgets on YouTube. He's also on Rumble. He's pretty good about covering legal stuff, so is Washington Gun Law, and I get a lot of my source material from them. But it's interesting that House Bill 4420, which would have been the most draconian gun bill, that would make Washington State's gun bills look really bad, even in comparison, which are pretty bad. And anything in New Mexico, being that we're behind the blue wall, look like a cherry bomb. Like they were really that draconian. They went so far as to ban certain types of ammunition, to license ammunition, to you had to have the stuff that's in California where they're wanting to have micro-stamping on parts such as firing pins and extractors, so that they can be the serial part of the serial number can be imprinted on the actual case when you fire the gun. The other cool thing that is kind of going around, and I spoke about this yesterday, and I spoke about it on my Rumble channel too, is that the receiver rule is completely dead. So what has happened is the Fifth Circuit Court has come out and said, in no uncertain terms, that 80% receivers of any kind are legal and have been legal. So we're winning there. What we have to have some concern for is something that I've known about, but it's been one of those things that's passed multiple times, is the NDAA. So what that stands for is Non-Detectable Armaments Act. Now, this came out in the 80s when the Glock pistol came out, because there was a huge scare that these would be able to pass through metal detectors and not be able to be detected. Anyone who has had a Glock pistol knows that the receiver, the lower receiver, I should say, not that, and I meant to say slide. The slide is all metal, and so is the barrel. The NDAA says in no uncertain terms that you can only have a gun that has to be detectable by X-rays, and it has to have at least 3.7 ounces of metal in it, so that it can be detected readily. Now, why is it a concern if this act has been passed multiple times before? Is because we know how the House and the Senate work, and they're in negotiations now to try to renegotiate this act to be passed through again. One of those stipulations is they're trying to do this so that it never has to come out before Congress again to be approved. Now, this is where we have to worry, because if any time they pass something that has no sunset, it means it can't be heard again, and it means that anything that's in this that they negotiate our rights away, we as the 2A community, we will be stuck with it until such time that we can get legislation approved or get another court case in process to fight it. So be careful of this. Thomas Massey is one of the people I know that has signed on for this to go ahead and let it pass. Now, Thomas Massey isn't one that doesn't look at stuff. He's also one that doesn't pay attention. He could back out of the support for this. But what I'm extremely nervous about is that anytime we have a bill that is up for discussion and there's bipartisan negotiation, we usually get hosed. We usually have people supposedly on our side who will actually side with the left and give away some of our rights. And our rights aren't up for debate. So I would recommend calling your congressman, calling your senators, and let them know that you're not very happy about the NDAA. I have already done so. I've already sent some emails out, and I've already made a few phone calls on my own behalf as a citizen, because modern technology isn't stopping. I don't know if you know who Huxworks is. They're now releasing 3D printed suppressors. So, it wasn't very long ago, and I've talked about this multiple times on this audio podcast, about 3D printing and how that genie's out of the bottle, and that gun control in itself is kind of dead because of that technology. It lends credence to me that there will be some pushback from the left, especially since they believe that suppressors are so scary, movie scary, and super quiet, when in reality, if you've ever shot one, they're just a device that helps make a firearm more safe for the shooter, but they don't care. But 3D printed suppressors, they've already been a thing in the plastic world, but they don't hold up very long because of heat. Well, with added technology now, and they're now making new metal printers that will soon be, if they are not already available in some capacity to private industry or individuals, this lends to that case that technology is caught up. In the world we're going to, additive manufacturing is something that's going to play a big part in our life in the future. It hasn't done so to this date, unless it's just kind of like a novelty item, or people are experimenting all the time. I've interviewed Antoinette Omi on Your Donut, You Eat It, I believe, that talked about additive printing, because she runs an additive printing business, and she has a lot of experience with that. And with that, you can see that the technology has advanced, the material science has advanced, and we can see newer, better technologies, especially with materials, Kevlar imprinted or embedded filaments that allow you to print devices or items that have some real durability. And that is where the future lies, whether we like it or not, in the firearms industry. There are companies already now using 3D printing in the firearms community that build weapons we know and like. Huxworks is just now coming out with this, and SIG has been using 3D printing for suppressors because it saves on cost and it makes a really complicated part in one pass instead of having to have multiple pieces. And this is the type of thing that if they roll it into the NDAA, that they stop this advancement in technology, that we will pay for it in the future. Because the Second Amendment isn't for just a few people in the United States, it's for everyone who's an American citizen. And it makes a ton of sense that anyone can make or obtain a firearm who is legal to do so, because the right of self-defense is universal. Let's try to keep our country as tactical as we can, and the only way we do this is by voicing up our opinion. On that funny note there, so Colion Noir, if you don't know who he is, you're not very new to the firearms community then, or you are very new to the firearms community. Colion Noir is kind of one of the smoothest guys that has been advocating for the Second Amendment for at least 13 years that I know of. He was put up to debate several people, and they usually back out. And the one case that I'm talking about right now is David Hogue. Now, if you don't know who he is, he was a supposed victim in the Parkland shooting, meaning that he was a kid that was on campus, supposedly, when this shooting happened, which was the one in Florida that a 16-year-old kid got a hold of a assault rifle, a very disturbed kid who had lots of warning signs and went and shot up a school. This is the one where the cop actually ran and hid, and that is how we know that law enforcement isn't obligated to protect you. In today's society, if no one's obligated to protect you, you need to be able to protect yourself. But I digress. David Hogue backed out of a live debate 3 minutes before the debate was supposed to happen when he found out who the opponent was. Now, it's interesting when you see Colion Noir's statement about this. He's asking us not to pound on David Hogue or make fun of him because he wants to have this conversation, because the conversation needs to be had. But what I notice time and time again, and we all know this in the 2A, is that we can debate people and openly debate it, but we do it from a point of good. That's the best way I can put it. We actually do it with no ill will intention. We want to know what you're thinking so we can counter those and give you real insight into what the real issues are. Because no one likes gun violence. We all want to stop it. But how do we stop it? And the only way to stop it that I have found is with mental health being addressed in this country. Colion Noir actually parroted the same thing. You know, he has said time and time again, we have a mental health issue, and he's actually put his money where his mouth is and is actually volunteering with a mental health group in Texas, because that's where he's out of, to try to address some of these issues. But as long as people like David Hogue, who's the mouthpiece for places like CNN, because he's a young kid who started this other foundation to stop gun violence, but his answer to gun violence is ban everything. He even comes out and says that he's a shooter, but he's not really a shooter. We all know what that is. You know, I take my dad's shotgun sometimes to the range. His dad is a former FBI agent or a current FBI agent, which lends even more credence to me that this guy is not a good guy. But we need to have those open and honest discussions so that people can be honestly be made a fool of when they try to debate someone as intelligent or as smooth as Colion Noir and get dealt with. And until people like David Hogue come out, and they won't if we rag on him enough, he's just going to back away and hide because he knows he's going to get dealt with. That's exactly why he didn't want to debate Colion Noir, because Colion Noir is no stranger to debates. He's been on several news channels, from CNN to Fox to The Blaze. He's been all over the place advocating for our Second Amendment. He was once part of the NRA before the NRA started not actually defending us. You know, when they started right around, I think he parted ways with the NRA right when the NRA started advocating with for backdoor gun control. And the NRA usually does. We wouldn't have the NFA right now, and we wouldn't have the 1986 assault weapons ban or machine gun ban if it weren't for the NRA. So I would recommend, if you're going to support people like Colion Noir. He has a clothing line called the Pew Life that helps directly support him, and I'm okay with him driving flash cars and everything else if it helps us keep our rights. But also places like FPC, the receiver rule that was overturned in court. And is going to be heard again for the final issue and ruling on this by the same court that said we're not going to side with you already for what you have there, what your case is based around. You need to do better. They have 10 days to make their case better. When the final ruling happens, I suspect it'll land in our ball court again, and we'll be back in good graces with 80% receivers, 100%. They're already returning to websites, and that's a good thing because we need to keep the country tactical, as I like to say all the time. Like, share, subscribe. Be great.
I can't let it slide. My politics are rather controversial. Who would have thought that